Performances from Canelo, although impressive, they've been carbon copies. These last couple fights, Munguia drops you once, goes to decision, domesticates his opponent, puts him in a place where, yeah, you stay there. We're going to get to the end, but I'm going to bust you up along the way.
Fight fans, it is time for Boxing Scene's top stories only on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I am George DeMatteis. Don't forget to download the app where the apps are available, ProBox TV app. You get the full ProBox experience on the app. And part of that experience includes the great champions that we have here on the network. We have Chris Algieri and we have Paulie Malignaggi joining us here on Top Stories. Well, the Canelo Alvarez train just keeps on steaming, on handing a younger and bigger Edgar Berlanga his first professional loss of his career. The 34-year-old version of Canelo has become more focused on winning than knockouts, but still flashed a little bit of that power when he knocked down Berlanga in the third round. All right, Paulie, what do you make of the overall performance of Canelo Alvarez?
Good performance. Listen, I don't think anybody thought Canelo was actually at the threat of losing this fight, which is where the criticism comes from. But solid performance. He looked like a solid vet, a championship vet. Still shows that, regardless of the aging process, he's probably still a top 5, top 3 super middleweight. If you let Benavidez and Morella at 168, like I've always said that I think they beat him. But nonetheless, outside of that, at 168, he's still very dangerous. In a different way than maybe he used to be. He understands how to have that craftiness. He understands how to mentally take control of a fight and still understands how to navigate his way and win a fight controlling you, especially an inexperienced guy like Berlanga. I feel like, I'm not going to say he dog walked him, but he basically knew exactly how to win that fight and put Berlanga in constant situations where Berlanga had to doubt himself. Berlanga, it got to the point I think he was just happy to go to distance, and that was a moral victory for him. But it was because Canelo started the fight there in terms of having that doubt in your head already to where you're asking yourself if you belong there. And then he makes sure you don't gain any confidence by keeping you in that mental place to where you don't believe you're going to win the fight. And that's what I think he was able to do that. So I think that's a matter of experience, craftiness, and subtle technique there. He's still a solid super middleweight.
Yeah, champ, you used the term dog walking, and I wouldn't say that Canelo quite dog walked Berlanga, but he did domesticate him. And that's something that I think Canelo has been really good at recently, fighting these younger, bigger guys. And once again, I mean, it's these performances from Canelo, although impressive, they've been carbon copies. These last couple fights, Munguia drops you once, goes to decision, domesticates his opponent, puts him in a place where, yeah, you stay there. We're going to get to the end, but I'm going to bust you up along the way. You don't really have a chance to win. He almost kind of did that with Ryder, too. Ryder came back a little bit at the end, but again, scored a knockdown, was able to assert his dominance, take control, and lead it. And it's kind of curious that Canelo's come out and he said knockouts are special at this point, but winning is what's important. Meanwhile, going into the fight, he said, yeah, I want the knockout, but changes the story after the fact. And I think we're getting more realistic answer from him after the fact that, yeah, he's okay with going 12 rounds. He's okay with taking the O's of these undefeated fighters, getting the 12 rounds in, not really risking going for the KO too much or putting that pressure that he used to. Canelo of old, the not 34-year-old Canelo, because listen, the guy is not the same guy. Yes, he looked good. Yes, it was a good performance. Yes, he's beating young, undefeated guys. This is not the same Canelo from old. Canelo from old, he had back-to-back knockout of the year wins back in, I believe it was 2015 and 2016, or one of those years. James Kirkland was one, Amir Khan was another. That guy is long gone. So, yes, he still has power at 68. He's scoring knockdowns in every single one of these fights against undefeated fighters who are very, very capable. But he's not the same finisher as he was. Canelo puts a ton of pressure on you, even now at 34. A lot of mental pressure, a lot of physical pressure. He walks you down very, very expertly, actually. One of the best guys at cutting off the ring in the game today. But it's the punches, the combinations are only when you're in trouble, only when he's looking for a finish for a short period of time, and then he lays off, goes back to one punch at a time, goes back to putting that pressure on you, both mentally and physically. But it's not the same kind of pressure he used to, where he was ripping combinations over and over and over again, and not only beating you, but not letting you off the hook. Seems like more and more now he's kind of fighting less of the entire round. Even though he's putting that pressure, he's not throwing as many punches. Dude, when you're throwing 30 to 35 punches a round, yeah, age is a factor. So I do believe Canelo looked good. I do believe I think he's the best 68-pounder in the world today still. But I think we're going to see more and more performances like this one, where we're going to get 12 rounds. They're going to be entertaining. I think this version of Canelo is still very, very fun. I thought the fight. I had a great time watching this fight, even though that it was pretty non-competitive. I thought it was an entertaining fight throughout. Berlanga looked just dangerous enough. He was doing just enough to keep Canelo at bay and survive. Canelo scores a brilliant knockdown in round 3 that was like had the whole arena going up in arms. So there was some drama in the fight, a lot of going back and forth in terms of them talking and doing maneuvers with their bodies to be showing their ego. So there was that level of competitiveness, but in terms of scoring, it wasn't a very competitive fight at all.
All right, yeah, all right. Let's enough of the Canelo party time now. We went a little too far here.
We got to balance it out.
We went a little too far here.
I give him credit,
but now we went down, Chimp. We went a little too far now. All right, we went a little too far. Okay, let's.
You know what everybody's asking me in Vegas? Why does Paulie hate Canelo so much? That's what I kept getting.
Because he doesn't fight the mandatory. That's why.
We're not talking about. We're talking about this fight. We're talking about the performance.
Exactly.
It was a good performance.
But then I don't hate Canelo. That's the place. What's with the hate on Canelo?
I told them that you don't hate Canelo, and that's not the case.
I like the wheels to turn here. Here's where I'm going to push back a little bit. Before the fight, he says, I still love boxing. I still love this. I still have motivated the training camp. No, you don't. You like to be a bully. You like to fight no-hopers and then bully them around the ring and get the accolades. He doesn't like boxing because somebody who loves boxing loves to test themselves against the best and see if they can still beat the best. Now, granted, I get it. He's a little bit past it. But if he didn't have the belts, I'll always say it. If he didn't have these belts, I wouldn't mind these kind of fights because he's good for boxing. He brings a lot of attention to the sport. He's been a terrific fighter, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, rightfully so. So all of that credibility and credit, you get it. But when you make a bad example, you're at the top. If you're at the top in terms of popularity and being the man, you've got to set the example for the sport and the way the sport has to run. There's a responsibility you have there. And as far as being the best 168-pounder, yeah, if you forced out Morrell and Benavidez because they can't get a title shot against you no matter what, then only in this sport, mind you, that happens. No other sport does that happen, where the best guys can't get a title shot. Because if you force them out, then yeah, he probably is the best 168-pounder. If they're still 168-pounders, for me, he's not the best 168-pounder, but he's the champion, of course. I don't know, man. It's a thing where he can still do a lot. I still see a lot of what's a really good fighter in him. But again, you like to be the bully, and I'll tell you why. Berlanga only fought to survive, okay? He fought just enough to get you off, keep you off of him, and then when he gets you off of him, he doesn't fight more. He does because now to continue that onslaught, it takes a little bit of a risk. It's like Teddy Atlas was telling Michael Moore years ago in that famous in-between rounds speech he gave him, where it's like, you're doing just enough to keep you off him, and you hope that he leaves you alone. Berlanga did exactly that. And Canelo did leave you alone. Canelo does leave you alone at this age, especially if you do enough to get him off of you. So then Canelo would get off of you, and then he'd restart later on. And get off you a little bit, and then work you into it later on. Berlanga would do enough to get him off him, and then not follow it up, ever, which means winning was never on his mind, because he never followed it up when he got him off him. And let me tell you, at this age especially, Canelo will give you the chance to go win the fight if you have the balls to do it. Because Bivol, when he got him off of him, then he would follow it up consistently, being first, assaulting him, attacking him, and Canelo willfully let himself get put on the ropes and didn't return fire and fought to survive. So again, do you love boxing or do you love being the bully? That's my question.
I'm pushing back.
This is a very crafty fighter. It's a very good fighter. He's still too good to just be able to be on these retirement tours. He's too good, and that's me giving him credit. But if you're too good, and you have the belts, you got to defend them against guys that deserve the shots.
Okay, listen, I'm not going to argue the belts because there's no question.
That's the only argument there is.
Well, no, you're making a lot of arguments. Actually, you make a lot of arguments against Canelo in terms of trying to be a bully. It's kind of funny to be a bully.
Tell me where Berlanga tried to win the fight Saturday.
I didn't say that Berlanga tried to win the fight, but
well, what are we fighting guys? We're fighting guys who just fight to survive now. That's what we're doing.
He's fighting big, young, undefeated guys
who never. Let me tell you, this is the same guy.
He's 34 going on 40. Canelo is an old 34.
This is the same guy who abused Andre years ago when Andre wanted to fight him and say, who have you fought? You never fought anybody. But then he goes and fights Berlanga. What did Berlanga do to earn this shot? And Berlanga, none of this is Berlanga's fault, mind you. He's going to be Berlanga.
You can't compare that Canelo from this Canelo, because one, they were different guys in terms of the way they fight. Two,
he's still a champion.
They're on very
different. Still a guy with the belts. That's what matters.
Very, very different trajectories in terms of their career. And I'm telling you, going to these fights, you see we're calling this the train keeps rolling because he really is the money train in the sport.
I get it.
He
That's why
gets
all
Vegas
this happens.
moving, bro.
Yes.
Vegas is insane on fight. There's
But that's why I
nobody,
feel he has the
nobody in the world
responsibility,
fights like that. But the thing is, the train keeps rolling, right? The promoters and him, they want to keep the train rolling. He goes out there and he catches a loss like he did with Bivol. That derailed him for a while. That was a big issue. Taking that loss to Bivol, he had to go back to his weight class. Taking these riskier fights later on. I'm not saying he won't.
Then vacate.
I agree on that. I agree on that. But in terms of what he did, in terms of his performance, in terms of what Canelo still brings to the table in the ring, dude, he's a lot of fun to watch. He's really good. We're watching someone that in a couple of years, Paulie, we're going to miss this guy.
Yes.
We're really going to miss this guy.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. I'll defend him to the core in terms of because he's still boxing. Like I really had a problem with Turki Al-Ashik just jumping up in the bandwagon and going to the UFC on the night Canelo fought when Canelo is the biggest thing we have. And so we've got to rally around that support. But within the family, because we're the boxing family, bro, I can give that criticism because he still has a responsibility. It's on his shoulders to hold up the sport and set the example the right way, especially if he's going to be a champion. If he's not a champion, then he should do the right thing and vacate the titles and still do this. He'll still sell all the fights, all the pay-per-views. He'll still sell. He'll still be more popular than any of the champions. But if he's not good enough to keep the titles against the best contenders, he shouldn't keep the titles hostage. And the sanctioning body should be ashamed of themselves.
All right, so Paulie, let's keep that energy going there. What's next for Canelo Alvarez? He's been talking about the winner of the Bivol better Biev. I think he secretly wants Bivol so he can get some revenge there. What do you think should be next for Canelo Alvarez? Or does he keep fighting? Does he wait for Crawford? Or does he pick another person from 168?
He secretly don't want none of that. You don't want none of that smoke. That's a wolf ticket if I ever seen a wolf ticket.
I can agree with you on that one.
I'm
going to agree with you on that one.
He doesn't, not only secretly, he literally, if anybody still believes that one, they're more gullible. I got a bridge I can sell you in Brooklyn.
75's not happening again. 75's not happening again.
Even at 68, he won't. Even if I'm sure Bivol would.
I can see.
Listen,
I can see Benavidez if he can get Benavidez to come back to 68 and he can put a rehydration clause. I could see it, and this is why. This is why, Chad. Because listen, I'm using the train analogy again. That's the title of our discussion right here, right? The train keeps rolling. Yep. So when it's time for that final stop, he could take that mega fight where he's going to get buku bucks to fight Benavidez down to 68. You bring him down to 68, hoping you can weaken him. You put a rehydration clause. I think he should have fought Benavidez earlier, before Benavidez became as good as he is now. Now, I mean, it's a real fight. I'm not saying that Benavidez walks over Canelo the way that you do, and I'll give you a turn on that one. I do believe it's still a fight, and because Canelo's crafty enough, he counterpunches well enough that guys who are really, really pressure fighters like that can get some pause. So I still like that fight. But if he ends up his career and he goes, all right, this is my last one, I'm going to go get that $150 million fight, and it turns out to be David Benavidez, and he takes a loss. Every Mexican legend finishes their career on a loss. I'm just saying, if he goes out like that, champ, what are you going to say then? If he goes, you know what, I'm going to take the Benavidez fight, he goes out there and he loses, calls it a career. Now, we were saying his fight's never going to happen. He doesn't fight these guys, but then he fights the guy at the end. It's almost like you're on your deathbed and you say, all right, I forgive me for everything I've done.
I'll tell you what I'll say. If my aunt had bulls, she'd be my uncle. All right? Let me tell you this. I'll bet you all kinds of farmland. All kinds of farmland. And we got a lot of that down here in Florida. But that's never going to happen. No shot that that's happening. In the imaginary world of the Triple Cs, sure, they'll argue with you in their imagination. But that fight's never going to happen. All right? Having said that, who does he fight? Let's go back to George. Who does he fight?
Billy next. It's going to be in Billy.
And Billy, if Crawford can't be made in Billy.
Yes.
I agree. I think Crawford can be made, and it's there's enough risk-reward factor there. You get a little bit of advantage of a smaller guy, but at the same time, it's a major fight because Crawford is super skilled and whatnot. There's a little bit of an argument going both ways, which way that thing could go. It's a talking point. It's a crossover fantasy fight. That's always a potential. But yeah, I can see Mbili because Mbili's a one-dimensional truck. Yeah. But let's stay with the train analogy. And the train analogy, I started the train analogy first, guys. All right? I started the train analogy.
It's the name of the
Benavidez runs Canelo over like a locomotive running over the car that got stuck in front of the train tracks.
Nobody runs over Canelo. Nobody runs over Canelo. Stop.
Because he won't fight those guys that run you over.
Even if they get in the ring, nobody's going to run over Canelo. You got to give the guy. You got to give the guy
respect. He does. He gets credit, but there the credit gets stopped right there at that fight.
Well, the debate will continue here on ProBox TV. And of course, as it gets closer to whoever he fights next, we'll keep you up to date here on Top Stories.
And Canelo's still boxing family. I defend Canelo when we go up against the UFC, all right?
Yeah. Well, by all accounts, they did. The fight of the pay-per-view of Canelo Alvarez did outdraw the UFC on the same night. So boxing's still alive and going strong. Don't forget to scan the QR code and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The debate will continue on with Canelo Alvarez and his future here on ProBox TV. And don't forget, the best live fight series in all of boxing continues October 9th here on ProBox TV. Wednesday night fights. It should be a great main event. That does it for this spirited and energetic Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, October 9th. Chris, Primetime Colbert, and Omar Super Salcido step into the ring for what is sure to be a barn burner. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at ProBoxTV.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.